Hey guys, Pitmaster here. All right, I'm going to talk about UFC 220. And I'm not going to show any techniques. This is going to be my lessons that I got from these fights. And there was a lot of good techniques and stuff, but to me, the biggest takeaways were the main event and the semi-main event. And let me explain how this can help you in your training and martial arts career. Okay, let's start with the main event. Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou, the Predator. I feel like the whole fight boiled down to a great strategy by Stipe. And I don't think it was a great training strategy by Francis. It was a grueling fight, as fights go, and this is the UFC and it's a title fight, so you need to expect it to be grueling. And I feel like his conditioning was the first thing to go. And let me tell you what I think. I think when you're training for a 5-round fight, you need to spar and drill 5 rounds. When you're fighting for a 3-round fight, training for a 3-round fight, you do 3 rounds. Now you have to do two kinds of training when you're training for a fight. You have to do conditioning aerobic work, right? And you need to do anaerobic work, so you can just explode. And you take your anaerobic threshold. You have to be used to the anaerobic threshold. You have to get used to the adrenaline dump. And that has to be done in training, because if it's done in the fight, it's too late already, right? It's like you don't practice how to shoot a gun when the robber's there, right? You have to do all your practicing ahead of time. So, number one, you up your rounds, right? And those rounds are anaerobic, but mainly aerobic. And then you keep your anaerobic drills, like your sprints and your anaerobic plyometric drills. You keep those the same. You don't need to make those longer, but you do have to build up a longer base. So I think he didn't do that, because as you saw, he seemed to get tired a lot quicker than Stipe. And kind of like Cain Velasquez did, but that was in Mexico City, and that was all about altitude. This fight wasn't at altitude, so this fight was all about conditioning. You can't control altitude. If you're going to fight in altitude, you don't know what's going to happen. It's a luck of the draw. Some people can train in altitude for a week, maybe 2 weeks. Some people just will never be able to get acclimatized for altitude, and some people can. So you can't. That's the luck of the draw. But when you're fighting at sea level, it's on you. And I feel like if you're a martial artist and you're training for the cage, the ring, the mat, or the street, you need to combine all-out anaerobic workout, the kind of workouts where you can't do another single one. You got to push your limit all the way. You need to do that at least once a week. I like to do it 3 times a week. But you got to do that at least once a week minimum. And you also need to get your aerobic workouts in, the other 3 or 4 days a week. So you need to push both. And I feel like Francis didn't do that, because it showed. He got tired way too quick. And when you're tired like that, I don't care if you got the knockout punch, the best submissions in the world, or whatever. If you get that tired, you can't. It's like you can have the fastest car in the world, but once it runs out of gas, it's not going anywhere. He ran out of gas, so there was nothing he can do. That's what I think for the main event. The semi-main event, not so easy to fix, because that main event, I think, is easy to fix. Just train harder and push yourself past your comfort zone. You got to push yourself till you can't even breathe anymore. You got to do burpees as fast and hard as you can. You got to sprint as hard as you can. You got to do 4 punches in a sprawl over and over and over till you cannot breathe. You can't do one more. You need to push yourself weekly. And if you're training for a fight, 3 times a week. That's what you need to do while you're in training for a fight. You need to do that. Okay, the DC fight, I think, was just it was down to distance, takedowns versus defending the takedown, and he capitalized on his great striking. He tried a couple takedowns that failed because he went in without anything. Okay, but once he starts punching, when you put those two together, you're much more effective. If you put your punching and your taking down defense, okay, you're much more effective. Now you put your punching and your takedowns together, it's much more effective. So you need to do both. Whether you favor standing up and striking, or you favor going to the ground. Either way, you need to combine them with an offense, or else it's going to be very ineffective. Your takedown defense is much more effective with the threat of striking. And your takedowns are much more effective with the threat of striking. Okay? So you need to practice both. You need to know how to strike and take down. Okay? And you need to know how to strike and defend the takedown. Okay? You want to favor one or the other, that's fine, but you need to practice both. Okay? So, that's my lesson for that second fight, the semi-main. All right, guys? Thanks for coming. Thanks for checking out my Sensei UFC. Please comment. Please subscribe. I want to know what you want to see next. So personally message me. Thanks.